Hello friends, welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. My name is Avinash Agarwal and in this video I'll be discussing with you economics current affairs for 28th October 2024. I have selected three important articles from the Mint newspaper. First article speaks about the Ladli Behna scheme of Maharashtra and we will understand that how it creates labor shortage in Maharashtra and that how it has driven up the cotton harvesting costs in the state of Maharashtra. Second article speaks about the recently concluded BRICS summit. What are the important takeaways, right? And how India can use BRICS as a platform to achieve its own geopolitical and geostrategic goals and initiatives, right? The third article speaks about the employment challenge, the industrialization challenge for Bengal, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. These three states of India are some of the most populous states. They have huge labor surplus that needs to be employed productively. We will see how industrialization can help us in this regard. So this is our agenda. Let us start with our discussion. All right. So I will be adding questions from tomorrow again. I'm very sorry about that. Let us start. So you may be aware that a lot of state governments, starting with Madhya Pradesh before the elections, Haryana before the elections, and now Maharashtra before the assembly elections, these states have started launching direct cash transfer schemes for various sections of their population. Some of them are targeting women, some of them are targeting elderly, some of them are targeting the vulnerable section of the society, as they may define the vulnerable section. So a lot of these states have started these direct benefit transfer or cash transfer schemes, and this is one of the first credible articles that I came across which speaks about the consequence of these cash transfers, right? So Maharashtra government, they launched Ladli Behna Yojana. The idea is noble that they want to empower women by providing them financial incentives. But now what has happened is that since women have started receiving rupees 1500 per month in financial assistance from the state, they have withdrawn themselves from farm work. As a result of which, now what is happening is that there is a labor shortage in Maharashtra. As a result of which, what is happening is that the harvesting cost has increased for cotton farmers in Maharashtra, because women, they form a significant proportion of farm labor in the state of Maharashtra, right? So this is the new challenge, right? So cotton growers, for good or for bad, they are struggling to meet their labor needs. This is a very crucial harvest season which is ongoing for them, and if you're struggling for labor, then that tells you something, right? So the normal cost of picking cotton, what do I mean by picking cotton? So you have to pluck cotton from the plant. So if this is the plant, this is the cotton boll, then you need somebody to go out there and pluck it from the stem. So the cotton picking cost has increased from 5 rupees per kg to 9 rupees per kg, right? And that's what the idea over here is that you need to keep in mind. So workers, they are able to harvest up to 90 kgs in a day. They earn 800 rupees per day. Costs are expected to rise to up to 30 rupees per kg in the next phase of cotton harvesting, is what farmers are anticipating, right? So this is the idea. So 3000 rupees has already been disbursed under the scheme for the month of July and August, right? Apart from that, cotton sowing, it has dropped to 11.27 million hectares from 12.37 million hectares, right? This is as per the Union Agriculture Ministry data, right? So sowing of cotton, it has also shrunk from 4.2 million hectares, right, to 4 million in the state of Maharashtra alone. So this is about India, this is about Maharashtra, right? So these are some of the estimates, okay? Now we are not saying that this entire reduction in sowing is because of the Ladli Behna scheme. The entire rise in prices of labor is because of Ladli Behna scheme. We are not saying that, but we need to understand what is happening, right? Now this decline in cotton production, okay, this decline is because of multiple factors: weather conditions, pest outbreak, rising input costs, soil health degradation, market fluctuations, water scarcity, shift in crop preferences, right? So a lot of these points are also valid for other crops. These are all the farmers' pain points. So tomorrow if you are writing an answer in agriculture, you know the kind of points that you need to mention. And it's okay if you start your introduction like this. If you list out all the points and then explain them later, that is also fine, right? So कुल मिला के because of all these factors, we see that there is a reduction in cultivation area. We see that there is a lower yield that we are able to get for ourselves, right? Now the point over here is that farmers are complaining of labor shortage, right? So it is the part-time labor that farmers used to get cheaply, because that part-time labor didn't have much of a choice of working anywhere else. So they used to make themselves available as farm hand. Now that farm hand is not so easily available, right? So this needs to be further investigated, right? Now what is happening is that if you ask Bhanumurthy, N.R. Bhanumurthy, who is the director of Madras School of Economics, Chennai, so he's making a very relevant comment that you should be able to appreciate that the workers' bargaining power has improved because of this Ladli Behna scheme. Yes, there is a marginal increase or there is an increase in the picking cost, right? But it may not be as great as the farmers are saying it should be, because if somebody is getting 800 rupees per day by working as a laborer on farm in the picking season for 1500 rupees per month, I am not going to stop working, right? But be that as it may, the idea is that if workers' bargaining power, if their ability to purchase the essentials has improved, that's good, right? And we are not necessarily to be blaming this particular scheme for this entire outcome. So this is a very balanced article in that sense. Okay, this is an ongoing issue, this is an emerging issue, this is only going to become shriller, louder and more messed up as we go ahead. You are sure to expect questions on these direct benefit schemes that have started in various states. You are sure to receive that what are the economic consequences, both positive as well as negative, of launching these kinds of schemes, right? So this is just start of the discussion. Going ahead, we will get many more opportunities to be able to tackle topics such as these. I hope you are appreciating the content that we are discussing with you. Moving ahead to the next article, let us speak about BRICS. Before we speak about BRICS, let me explain to you what is happening. So Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa are 5 as different countries as you can find in the world. Their economies, their societies, their political setups, their stages of development, stages of industrialization, levels of poverty, they are very much different from each other, right? Now this BRICS is expanding to become BRICS plus, so a lot of other countries are getting added into this fold of BRICS. BRICS, because of the kind of tendencies that Russia and China exhibit, tends to have an anti-Western kind of an approach. Challenge for India is twofold. Challenge is that India is not at all anti-West in its bilateral setups, right? We are having extremely good relationships with the Western countries. So how does India balance the generally anti-West slant of BRICS with its emerging and strengthening bilateral relationships with the Western countries? That is number one thing that we need to ponder about. Number two, we are expanding BRICS plus to include the likes of Iran. India has had a historically strong civilizational relationship with Iran. How does this sit with India's relationship with countries such as United States of America is something that we need to, ponder about. And how can BRICS become meaningful for India? That is also something that we need to discuss. So these are important points of consideration. One article will obviously not answer everything, but we need to go down this particular track. We need to think like this. We need to think on these lines, right? That is what we need to do. If there is absolutely any question that anybody has, please feel free to ask. I can see the live chat and I would like to address your questions in the live chat itself, right? So if there is absolutely anything, please ask. Munesh, hello to you too, right? Let's ask. So the BRICS summit was recently held in Kazan, Russia. BRICS, whenever they meet together, there is usual criticism, usual praise, right? So like I said to you that this grouping is disapproved in the sense that this is a very disparate group of nations, right? So there was some Goldman Sachs banker who came up with the acronym of BRICS in early parts of the 21st century, saying that 21st century important movers and shakers are going to be these important countries put together as BRIC, right? So the idea is that it's a diverse bunch of countries, right? And any kind of meaningful unity is a pipe dream. That is one interpretation. That's not a reality. That's one interpretation, right? If you look at the official communication at the end of the summit, right? So we speak about all the important issues of the day which are relevant for the entire world. Okay, we enunciate an anti-West bias, right? We want to reduce the dominance of US dollar in international trade and payment system. This is one evidence of the anti-West bias that we spoke about at the start of the article. That what is happening is that since America started misbehaving, right, and started abusing the dominance of dollar, is when the country started talking about this particular issue. So what happened is that when the Russia-Ukraine war, as condemned as it may be, started, so what did US do? US froze Russia's billions of dollars worth of assets held in various global banking systems, right? And they froze it, and Russia cannot access its own dollars. So these were dollars which Russia earned as a country. It was Russia's reserves, and now they cannot access it because it is in dollar, it is held in dollars, and United States of America can control where those dollars go or where those dollars don't go. So this dominance of US dollar, the dominance of US government, right, in trade, in payment systems, is something which started pinching a lot of commentators, observers, academicians, and policymakers, right? So that is something that we need to discuss. That's a separate topic. It can be a separate topic of discussion, right? Another aspect which I mentioned is that we are including new members, right? So for countries such as India, this is a delicate task of balancing that we need to do. That our economic stature is increasing, third largest economy and whatnot, right? And we also need to safeguard our strategic autonomy, right? We cannot be drawn into BRICS, which is anti-West, and we are seen as anti-West ourselves, nor can we go in the opposite direction where we can drawn into a camp and we are seen as anti-Russia or anti-China. So this is a very delicate balancing act that we need to do, right? And I guess that a term that Shashi Tharoor introduced, that is multilateralism, is something which is going to be very, very helpful in this particular regard for us, right? That we are not following, what was it called, non-alignment, multi-alignment, right? We are not following non-alignment anymore. Rather, we are going towards multi-alignment or multi-alignment. Multiple stakeholder management is what we need to do, right? So the idea over here is that we are in a unique geopolitical position, right? And we need to see that how our objective, like for example, India is participating in creation of a variety of trade and investment routes, right? So at least 3 trade and investment routes have been supposedly bankrolled by India, right? So we have the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. We have some north-south corridor reaching up to Russia via Iran, right? So, and there is this third corridor which is going from Chennai to Vladivostok, crossing a lot of East Asian countries in the middle of it, right? So there are important trade and investment routes that India is trying to create, which is passing through BRICS countries, right? Or joining BRICS countries. So we need to see how that will work out, right? So the idea over here is that we need to see that how does this BRICS plus which is getting created, how does it help our geo-economic aspirations? नहीं तो कोई मतलब नहीं है ना. It can be an academic exercise कि every चाय पे चर्चा हो रही है, कजान वजान घूम के आ गए, टाइम पास कर लिया, ठीक है, फोटोग्राफ निकाल ली, बातचीत कर ली, but that's not it, right? Something has to concretely come out of it, right? That's what the examiner will discuss with us, that how can BRICS plus help us, right? For example, Iran, right? So Iran is the new member. Modi ji found out time to have a bilateral meeting with the new president of Iran at Kazan. Like I mentioned to you that we have civilizational ties. Economically also, Iran is important for us, not just as a supplier of hydrocarbons, but also because we have invested in the Chabahar deep sea port, which is right next to China's Gwadar port in Pakistan, right, which is an important, therefore, port for us as well. So strategically speaking, India-Iran ties hold a lot of potential. But what happens is that because of Iran's nuclear behavior and its constant friction points with Israel and with the Western countries, Iran is always under the looming cloud of Western economic sanctions. And therefore, India-Iran relationships does not come to full bloom because India is always tiptoeing around Iran, always looking over its shoulder as to what is the United States of America thinking about India's romance with Iran, right? So the idea over here is that we should always be hopeful because Iran can play an alternative springboard. India can use Iran as a point on the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that we are trying to create. We thought that this corridor will pass through Israel, but looking at the Israel-Palestine hostilities, right? We see that there is a problem over there on that route, right? So Iran, it is an important country, like I mentioned, international north-south transport corridor, right? So it will give India access to a lot of Central Asian countries, your Kazakhstans and Uzbekistans of the world, apart from giving access to Russia. Now it's not difficult for India to reach out to Central Asian republics. We were always connected to Central Asian republics, but after 14th August 1947, Pakistan has decided that they will close the door upwards and southwards and not allow the trade to go through. पाकिस्तान का ही नुकसान है, हमारा क्या नुकसान है? वी आर तो थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी ऑलरेडी. पाकिस्तान का नुकसान है, लेकिन उनको समझ में नहीं आता है अभी क्या करें, राइट? सो दैट्स व्हाई वी हैव टू बाईपास पाकिस्तान एंड क्रिएट दिस इंटरनेशनल नॉर्थ साउथ ट्रांसपोर्ट कॉरिडोर वाया अदर कंट्रीज, राइट? बिकॉज ऑफ पाकिस्तान मिसबिहेवियर, right? So India's reliance on Iran, right? That is important because we are trying to compete with BRI, not exactly compete with BRI, but we are trying to have our own initiatives, which are global initiatives, right? So the idea over here is that our geopolitical strategy, right, can be useful. BRICS can be useful for us. So BRICS needn't be anti-West so much. So India can use BRICS, right, to its advantage, right, to come close to countries such as Iran, etc., countries such as Russia, etc. India can use its closeness to US, right, to make sure that they are able to counter China, right? So this is becoming more of an international relations ka discussion. So I will quickly close this by talking about the idea that US has this tendency to weaponize dollar. Like I mentioned, that US will impose unilateral sanctions against sovereign states. Tomorrow they are very much capable of launching a unilateral sanction against India. Presidency changes, climate changes, है ना? Immediately something may change against India also. Yeah, you never know, right? So the idea is that this unilateral sanctioning that US does, that is weaponization of dollar, that is not sitting well with a lot of countries, right? Yes, dollar is the world's most acknowledged currency, accepted currency, trusted currency. And yes, de-dollarization is not going to happen because when countries trade with one another, they like to settle in currencies which they can use. So if we are selling, let us say, something to Sri Lanka and we are buying something from Sri Lanka, it makes more sense to use dollars, right? Because then Sri Lanka and India both can use those dollars for further trade. So you will naturally want to use a currency which is exchangeable within the transactions, right? So that's where the importance of dollar comes, right? But India is also trying to get away from dollars, not only because of this sanction business, but why not? Why not use our domestic currencies? We have $700 billion of $700 billion of foreign exchange reserves. That's not a problem. But why not use domestic currencies? So we are having bilateral treaties. Like for example, we have this comprehensive economic partnership agreement (CEPA) with United Arab Emirates, right? And that incorporates trade settlement in local currencies. So we are trying to do the same with Russia. We are trying to do the same with UAE. We are trying to do the same with Iran, right? And we can try to do it in a institutional manner as well, is what the Mint newspaper is saying. What is the Mint newspaper saying? That there is something called as an Asian Clearing Union, right? And thereby we can create an arrangement for nations to settle payment for intra-regional transactions, right? So we can settle payments using local currencies for intra-regional, in the sense that for Asia ke transactions, rather than use dollars, we can use some other currency. So right now the volumes are not encouraging for this Asian Clearing Union. Volumes are not encouraging, but that can change. With concerted effort, we were able to create a BRICS bank. With concerted effort, we can try to revive this clearing union as well, right? So this is the submission for the first and the second article, right? Moving to the third article, which is a very important article. We have discussed this earlier as well a little bit, that if India wants to use its demographic resource, that if India wants to make use of its youth bulge, right, that if you want to bring the backward regions or the backward states, relatively speaking backward states of India ahead, right, if you want to pull people out of agriculture, then we need to do something. And what is that something that we can do? We can focus on BUB, right? Let's call these three states. Author is saying that let's call these three states as BUB, right? That is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, right? So the idea over here, the ideas which I am going to highlight are very important over here, that meaningful employment opportunity needs to be created. You will agree with me, right? We have nearly 900 million working age individuals in India. You will agree with me, right? job quality is very important. It's not just job quality. What is meaning of job quality? 365 days job, good jobs, formal jobs, jobs with social security, jobs with certainty are important, right? Acha, you will also agree with me that we need these jobs across the country. And once we are able to achieve this, then probably we can say that we will be able to have widespread economic prosperity in our country. We cannot have widespread economic prosperity in our country sans or without top quality jobs across the country. Now, लाऊं कहाँ से? Right? लाऊं कहाँ से ये jobs? क्या करूं? So Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, they have 1/3 of the overall population, 452 million in 2021. Right? So if we look at these three states, which are having 1/3 of the overall population, 452 million in 2021, right? So अगर ये एक single country होते, right? So they would probably be the third most populated in the world by 2036, right? It is that big a region that we are talking about. The author is trying to first impress you by explaining the importance of the concept of BUB, right? That if BUB were a country, BUB would be the third most populated country in the world by 2036. BUB would also be one of the poorest countries in the world. That's a separate problem, which is exactly what we're trying to solve, right? Your per capita income, right, that is as low as 5,000 rupees per month in 22-23 in BUB, right? If you look at the working age population of BUB, 281 million in by 2021, right? So significantly large number of people are migrating out of BUB for work, right? So the idea over here is that if we can create jobs locally within these states for the youth population, that would be a win-win-win situation for everybody, right? So if you look at some more data, right? So sectoral employment to population ratio, right, of 20 to 35 year olds at the state level, right? So you will see some good numbers coming out over here, good interpretations coming out over here, right? So the idea is that Uttar Pradesh saw no change in the share of industrial employment, right, between 2017 and 2024. So it is stuck where it was. Industrial employment is stuck at the low level of 6.4% for the last 6 to 7 years in Uttar Pradesh. Bihar, right? बिहार ने तो डिक्लाइन देख लिया फ्रॉम 4.3% to 3.2%. West Bengal has the highest proportion of people in this age group, right? They have seen a marginal increase from 10.8% to 12.4%. Now I would like you to appreciate that our national target is 25% contribution by manufacturing sector to India's GDP and a significant expansion in the number of workers in this particular sector. We don't seem to be achieving that at all, at least in the most populous states of India. We don't seem to be achieving our targets, at least in the most populous states of India, right? If you look at Rajasthan and Maharashtra, right, so their manufacturing employment increased by 2 to 3% over the period, right? But ठीक है, उनको छोड़ दो. Now why is it that industrial employment is languishing in BUB despite the fact that we have Make in India and everything else? So like I mentioned to you, that Make in India ka target is that we must achieve 25% of GDP coming from the manufacturing sector. We should have already achieved it, but we have not achieved it, so we have pushed the target ahead again, right? So if you really want to achieve this, we have discussed this earlier as well. Just a couple of days ago, we had discussed this, that if India wants to achieve anything, any of its targets, states such as BUB, they need to outperform, they need to overperform, right? So only and only when the share of manufacturing in BUB economies exceed the national target will the national target be achieved, right? But if you see the BUB share of manufacturing in their economies, so that's only 12%, right? So we need to double the manufacturing share in these three states, right? अब ये कैसे करें, right? So you understand, right, that in BUB the share of manufacturing in GDP is low, therefore the share of workers in manufacturing is low in these states, right? So 23-24 के अंदर if you look at UP Bihar का numbers, people who are in the education are more than people in industry, right? बिहार में 7.8% of the population is in education, more than double the number in industry, right? So people are going for higher education. So do you think that they want factory floor jobs? Do you think that they want to work, become blue collar workers like Amitabh Bachchan was in the movie Hum, right? Irrespective of the idea of, you know, being able to dance around here and there, right? So the idea is that people are looking for opportunities elsewhere, in the services sector, in the office based employment, in public or private sector, right? If you look at the share of service employment, right, so you will see it has jumped. It rose from 20% to 23%. बिहार के अंदर it jumped from 18% to 25%. बंगाल के अंदर it jumped from 24 to 33%. So that this tells you where the youth wants to go, irrespective of where you want to take the youth. Very important, very important. So even if manufacturing jobs do get generated in BUB, who will take up these jobs, right? So it will not be your educated youth. Don't need to look at them. It will be mostly women, mostly people working in agriculture, right? So 33% of the BUB population, that is not even in the labor force, right? 23% of the BUB population is working on the farms, right? And it is this sector that we want to target, and through them we will be able to push these states towards prosperity, right? Now the idea over here is that yes, there is threat of automation, yes, there is threat of jobless manufacturing growth, right? And therefore we need to do some special gymnastics for job creation, right? These are landlocked countries, they do not have access to ports, which raises the transportation costs of accessing the global market, and it increases policy logistical challenges. So if we want to ever achieve our manufacturing targets, ever, and simultaneously pull people out of agriculture in these states and pull them towards manufacturing, so we'll have to create jobs within these states. You can't, do you expect, I mean, with no discrimination bias in my mind, do you expect that women working on farms in BUB will leave farms to go to far away cities to work, to far away industrial centers to work in those industrial centers? It's not happening. It's not happening, guys, right? So we must create jobs within BUB, right? There are ongoing policy initiatives by central and state government. For example, Uttar Pradesh, it provides a capital subsidy, stamp duty exemption, preferential land allotment. So Uttar Pradesh is trying to attract private investment, right? They've announced manufacturing clusters, right, in the semiconductor space. Central government is providing subsidies under the PLI initiative, right? So we need to merge these efforts together, right? We need to merge these efforts together and do what needs to be done over here, right? So India's success in terms of shared prosperity, it depends upon what happens in BUB, that is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Service sector jobs, white collar jobs, office jobs, that's not going to pull people out of farms. That's not going to create livelihood opportunities for women, right? Manufacturing can do that. Now, how do we make manufacturing successful over here? We'll probably have to apply our minds a little more to be able to solve that puzzle, but I'm sure that that puzzle can be solved. So these are my three discussions, very eye-opening kind of discussions in my opinion, in three different directions, right? I hope that you have learned something new from this discussion, and I hope that you will be able to use this as a launch pad for having fantastic understanding of what is happening in the Indian economy. With this, we'll bring this session to an end. We'll meet tomorrow again. If there are any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much. All the best and Jai Hind to all of you.